Hey everybody, welcome into the New England Ski Journal Basecamp podcast, sponsored by Country Ski and Sport. I'm your host, Mike Speechin, with my co-host,
Keith Pearson.
Keith. We are completely into spring fun.
Absolutely. All the pond skims seem to be behind us now or just wrapping up, and pretty soon not going to be much lift spinning going on other than the big boys.
It's closing down quickly. You know, you think about it, areas are now closing. They start south to north. Yep. The smaller second tier areas in the mountains are closing down because nobody's there, first off. But it's springtime.
It's spring, and spring has sprung, and the field sports are starting to pick up.
Yeah, so's the whitewater, so's the mountain biking. I hate that word, team sports, because it takes away from all the fun stuff. Surfing season.
Surfing.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. That's, the bottom line is there are other things happening.
Yeah, and it's getting warmer,
It's the sun's. You know what I love best about skiing at this time of year?
Drinking?
Well, that too. Nothing's better than breaking out the chair and having a pop at the end.
Absolutely.
But, what is best about this time of year? Oh, thank you, David. That's right. You're an après ski guy, aren't you, David?
Yes, that's what I'm doing. As far as I know, that's what I'm doing behind the board here. Just,
That explains some things.
Let me know if you want one.
Join us. Exactly. But the best part about this time of year is that you don't struggle to get out at 8 or 9 in the morning because it might be frozen up in the mountains. It dropped back to 28 degrees. Mm-hmm. You get out there at 10 and you can ski until 4 plus.
4? 6?
6 or 7.
Yeah.
Well, in this case,
yes.
At ski areas, you can climb afterwards. Mm-hmm. I love to hop in the tech stuff and climb my last run. There's nothing better than, sitting up at the top of the mountain for that pop. Because one goes in the backpack and you climb, you sit up there with sunglasses on and you
reward yourself.
You can't beat it. I've so many days.
Cheaper as well.
But at this time of year, we're doing more of that climbing. We're doing more of that adventure because that little spot up in Pinkham Notch starts to become...
It's a draw, isn't it?
It's enticing, isn't it?
I've never done it. I've never done any sort of uphilling. I will admit to that firsthand. But yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just a draw, even to someone like myself who's never been up there and would probably, that first time, would probably feel like, what am I doing here? And, I have, 30-something years, 35 years skiing, but...
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah, but it just looks completely different than anything you see on a resort.
It's different, but the beauty of Tuckerman's is that you can choose how far up you want to climb. Okay, you can stay in the lower bowl, especially at this time of year, and get the experience without any of the pucker factor. Because there's times, any time I ski a steep terrain, super steep, tight, the first turn's always the tough one. Well, after the first turn, it's just like let gravity go. You just ski. Right. It's no big deal to me. But the first turn can sometimes, say, okay, let go. I know you're tight after the climb, but just relax. But I can tell you, Tuckerman's to me, I've been up there so many times. One time by myself when I shouldn't have been up there, where I took a slide and I was young, I was stupid. And I think we'll talk about, with our guest here in a minute, about due diligence. But yeah, I stupid. I was by myself. I was about halfway up the head wall and in college and took a slide. My feet slipped out and ended up in, thank God I didn't hit any of the rocks, but I ended up in the brush down at the bottom.
Oh.
I was so pissed off. I got up, brushed myself off, and climbed again. But stupid one, stupid two. I shouldn't have ever climbed the first time or the second time. But I can remember one time at Tuckerman's sitting up in the left gully. I was at the top, sitting up there with a friend. And it was just a beautiful day. 1 week to the moment after, I was on the top of the east wall at A Basin. I was out there looking at a place to live because my wife and I were moving at the time. And it was the same thing. Just, you sit up in this pristine area that you had to work to get to. And you knew you were going to ski. And you just take in that religious moment of nature being so incredible.
Yeah, I can't speak to it with skiing, but I obviously, the hiking side of it, yes. Yeah, that's huffing and puffing.
So the top of North Peak for you?
Not quite. It's
not quite the same.
Not quite the same. No.
Not quite the same.
Lovely view and across. Looking over at Cannon and all that's lovely. Same thing at Cannon. Looking over at Lafayette, great. But it definitely looks intriguing. Let me tell like the idea is because after a while it does get into hey, I've done this how many times.
Well, that's
and this it is a clear change to figuring out like the idea of how to work your body up the hill on a set of skis and then switch transition over to the downhill aspect of it.
Well, when we do this, okay, rule number one is you pre-medicate with ibuprofen.
Oh, I love
power
pellets.
Yeah, power pellets. But no, I'm excited. This is somebody that's coming on today that I've watched the growth of his business. I've watched what's been going on up there, and this is somebody that created a niche that is so needed, especially in the White Mountains. And it's not just about skiing; it's about a year-round embrace of the whites.
Yeah, it's White Mountain Ski Company, but it could also be White Mountain Hiking Company, White Mountain Biking Company,
White Mountain Living Company.
That's true too.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yep. And think about it, he's got a great spot. He's 7 miles south of Pinkham Notch, so he's right at ground zero for all of the Tuckerman season.
Right in the middle of some of the greatest history in New England skiing of Jackson, New Hampshire. I mean, it is incredible. So without Keith and I sitting here talking about all this, we're going to bring Andrew Drummond on, who started the White Mountain Ski Company. And we're going to talk to Andrew about what they do and getting up into the mountains of New Hampshire and exploring on skis. So we'll be right back after this. Hey, everybody. Welcome back into the Basecamp podcast. Now joining us from Jackson, New Hampshire, Andrew Drummond, the owner of White Mountain Ski Company. How you doing, Andrew?
Hey, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking a little bit of time as you're getting ready for a high season up there.
Yeah, we are in it. It is spring full on, but of course, Mother Nature's nice curveball right now is it's snowing up high. But we just had a beautiful textbook bluebird spring conditions for a few days this week where everything softened up, and the locals that were up here and those that got to play hooky had a great time.
Were you able to sneak out of the shop during your closed days and make some runs?
I was able to get out on Tuesday and had a great day. And then, up at Tuckerman Ravine. And then Wednesday, I snuck out for a couple hours and busted out some tele skis. I'm learning a new endeavor there. And I went over to Attitash and I spent a few days with one of my tele customers getting some tips.
That's awesome. Well, we're gonna go back to that tele idea here in a minute. But as you know, I'm a longtime retailer. That's what I've done. That's what I know. I have to ask you, what exactly is White Mountain Ski Company?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a short-term retailer. This is all new to me. This wasn't a path that I ever anticipated, but White Mountain Ski Company is a ski bike run specialty outdoor retailer. So we're right here in Jackson, New Hampshire, which is at the foot of, I don't know, the White Mountains in terms of like the gateway. We're right 10 minutes down the road from Pinkham Notch Visitor Center, where we spend most of our time. But I started this shop in, I want to say 2016. I opened up my first account with Fisher Skis, and it was just the idea of selling gear that I was using. And the gear that I'm using and where we live up here in the East Coast is might be a lot different than what you'd find for gear out in the West Coast. And backcountry skiing at that point was still very niche and ready to explode, but it hadn't quite gotten there yet. So there wasn't a ton of options for I guess what I would consider modern day touring gear. You know, there's a lot of hybrid stuff coming out, a lot of more alpine category touring gear, but I was using a lot of the light and fast gear that I tend to use, and I wanted to share that with the user group that was forming. And so what started off as one account quickly grew to many more. But to jump back to your question is that, yeah, the retail thing came about, and through all these small incremental decisions has grown into not only the ski side of things, but trail running, hiking, mountain biking, gravel biking, e-bikes. We do a lot with, I guess, specialty footwear too. So footwear, the same thing applies to skis, is the footwear we're using in the White Mountains. So having the right shoes, and then all the other associated gear that we take out on a daily, that gets daily use up there. I want to have that in stock, ready to go in the shop.
Well, you see what you just stated. You see a lot of that in Europe, where there's a lot of alpine touring. And I only know of 2 other shops in New England that have totally embraced this, like you, one being Mountain Ops and the other one being Basecamp, that have took those niches and said, hey, we wanted to create something. What is the mission statement overall of the White Mountain Ski Company, and what else do you do other than just retail?
Yeah, I've thought about that many times over in terms of this path we're taking, and it all comes back to like a few different little pillars, and that's like, one is the selfish ego and drive to have stuff that I like and I use. I'm first and foremost, I want to spend as much time out in the mountains as possible, and I want to have the best gear as possible. So that was like number one. But number two is community. It was like kind of an afterthought that all these things I was doing, whether that was like creating content through videos, media, photos early on when I wasn't very busy at the shop, to now I get to create events, host events, and service the community, and watch it grow and build and contribute. I'm part of some nonprofits, and I think having that ability to watch a user group form and grow and have some input in that is very rewarding, and kind of puts the retail on the back burner. Retail is a means to all these other things that we get to do, but that's like if you look at the core of what we do, it's like, yeah, create an environment that as a consumer you would want to be part of. And it's like, I don't treat customers like customers, you treat customers like family. And if someone gets something from us, like, I'm going to treat them like they're a family member, something where they can, if this didn't work out for them, I'm going to switch their boots out, switch their skis out, do whatever, kind of bend over backwards to make sure that they're completely satisfied with the gear they're on, so that they have the best experience, and they tell all their friends about us and what we do. So that's for sure the core of what we do.
Awesome.
Have you been able to, get out as much as you have all along, even though the business has blown up the way it has?
So Keith, just so you know, I got to step in here. If you like to ski, don't get in the ski industry.
Right,
okay, that's number one. Go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
No, he's got a point. It ebbs and flows. I think that there's some commitments that you just have to get done. But yeah, when I started this, I had no work, and so I wanted to become an expert in the White Mountains. And so that just meant spending a lot of time on trail, skiing and really knowing the lay of the land and sharing that with an audience. But ultimately, as commitments and responsibilities grow in a business, like, yeah, you're tied up more. You often become a bottleneck in some departments, and that's something I'm learning how to deal with now. And I still prioritize skiing. It's like I might set the alarm clock for 4 a.m. now or 4:30, but like I make a point to get out and just, yeah, remember why I got into this.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's frustrating because if I'm not out there if I'm not able to get out and ski, I'm probably not that happy to be around, and I'm sure my coworkers can verify that. So yes, there's been a reduction in some of my outdoor time. I'd love to spend 8 hours a day outside, but I can usually get up early or stay out late and get something in.
It's what headlamps were made for, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Hey, I am the resort type. How do you pull that person and encourage them to get into the backcountry, or even the side country first?
Right. There's I think I was that resort person too.
Mhm.
And it just got stale to some degree, where I grew up in the alpine ski programs here in the White Mountains. Like, I was always an alpine racer. I did after school programs, I did in school programs, and it was just sort of a given. Like, yeah, you learn how to alpine ski, you live here, we're in the mountains. But what do you do with that? And I just I ski race. I wasn't having a ton of success, and I was like, all right, what else can I do? I'm going to try to hit jumps. I'm going to try skier cross. I started ski patrolling, and I just kept looking for a path forward in skiing. I just didn't find it, and I was just like, I just can't do resort skiing all day, especially here where we live, where it's like I get really, you know, after the groomers are skied up, I'm like, I don't know. It's like, if the conditions aren't great, then what else do you do? So anyways, I pivoted to surfing, and I spent a solid 10 years of my life specifically just surfing. Um, but I discovered backcountry skiing at this pivotal moment where, at the same time as I was discovering backcountry skiing, I was getting into some of these endurance sports like trail running. And it just all clicked. Like, I love hiking. And I think a lot of the alpine user group loves to hike. Um, and if you can combine those two together, where you get to hike up and ski down, and you take total control of your skiing, where you get to decide what hours you're going to go ski and where you're going to go, and I'm not alone in being like a powder hound and wanting to create first tracks and set a skin track up something. But I've always just wanted to chase good skiing, and backcountry skiing's enabled me to do that way more than being reliant on a ski resort. So it clicked for me right out of the gate. And maybe 2010, I was visiting my brother in Alaska, and a trip that changed my life, where we got to do everything from a hut trip, powder skiing at the resort. We went heli skiing, snowmobile skiing, just like remote backcountry stuff that it combined everything that I was like passionate about at the time. I still love to ski, but the resorts I was skiing at, it was just becoming too run of the mill familiar. So I think anyone that's resort skiing will start to see all this uphill movement, especially where the uphill policies allow, people to skin up during the day. Then they're going to be introduced to it and get a little curiosity. And of course, it's not for everyone. Some people just like, it just doesn't appeal to them. That's fine. But for those that have that curiosity, they're going to want to try it at some point and see what it's all about. And then so that's where it gets back to what I started with White Mountain Ski Company, is to break down that barrier so that customers could get the gear, and that whole like intimidation factor of like, you're telling me I need like ski skins, boots, bindings, poles, all designed for this. And it's like, well, if I can show you modern gear and give you the best experience possible, you're going to want to do this. And that's sort of what we've seen with the market is COVID came around. That was a big push. It was a good reason for anyone on the fence to think about trying it, to all of a sudden want to do it and get some gear. And there's customers that are just going to like keep this stuff in the garage, or they're just going to dabble in it and maybe just do it socially. But we've seen just a whole group of people that just make it what they do now.
Well, you mentioned telemarking, and we also have tech. Why don't you give us an idea what the difference is between those two, disciplines?
Right. You can even add in splitboarding. There's different ways to enjoy the backcountry, and you can ski or you can splitboard. So splitboard quickly is just like a snowboard that splits in half, and your binding actually holds it together for downhill. But for uphill, it splits into two skis, and you skin right up just like you would with skiing. And then, of course, alpine touring is taking a binding that frees the heel for the way up and locks it down for the way down. And of course, when I say we're going up, you put these skins on your bases that have a sticky side that will stick to the bases. Usually doesn't leave residue, but it has a little fur nylon or nylon hybrid material that only goes one direction. So you can slide forward, grip, step up, and then move your other foot up forward. So that's uphilling, that's skinning. Like you'll call it uphilling generally when it's on piste and when it's at a resort, but it's technically backcountry skiing when you take that set off piste. And telemark skiing, the heel is always off the ski, but there's a touring mode on most modern telemark bindings that reduces the friction. So you get a ton of articulation forward on the binding on the toe piece. And then for downhill, there's a downhill mode on the tele binding that gives you resistance and control. So you still, your heel isn't locked in, but you can make those tele turns.
How do you feel you adjusted at it, Tash, you said? How do you feel the learning curve is going from a tech? I was an old tele skier. I'm an alpine skier, but I'm in tech now. How did you feel the difference was between being in a tele binding and being in a tech binding?
Man, well, I thought I was going to be a hot shot. I thought I was just going to pick it up first run. And man, I was humbled pretty quickly where it's a very dynamic movement. It's counterintuitive to traditional alpine skiing. You're weighting both feet equally, and you're instead of driving your inside leg forward, you're dropping it back. And yeah, there's been a lot of it's taken a while, and I don't have a ton of time to commit to picking up this discipline. But what it's done is, man, it makes those days at the resort so much more interesting and exciting. I've also picked up snowboarding too, because we carry these hard boot split boards. So if we're looking at split boards, you can do it with a more of an alpine style hard shell boot, or you can do it with a soft normal boot. And the hard shell boots are better for mountaineering. And we sell that product here. And of course, I don't want to have to take a sales rep's word for it. I want to be able to talk and speak to how the gear operates and have an experience, like, yeah, some data points. So anyway, I'm spending a lot of time at the resort on different gear, trying to figure it all out. But it's been so much fun to be a beginner again at these disciplines, and I had no idea that telemark was so really so dynamic. Like I know that actual turn is dynamic, but doing these drills, monomarking, and just different ways to move on your feet, and you mix in some alpine turns, of course, but it's fun. It's fun to just keep learning. I think you want to be challenged, and that's where the rewards come.
Well, when you see a really solid telemark skier, you now have a new appreciation, because I look at them and say, I could never go at that level. They're amazing.
Well, there's been this resurgence in telemark this season because Scarpa released a new telemark boot after many, many years of anticipation. This TX Pro boot came out, and it really took, Scarpa put all their resources into alpine touring. And so alpine touring leveled up. And then finally they took all of those resources and everything they've learned about alpine touring and put it back into the telemark boot. So now the telemark boot in this modern tech telemark era now has a new boot that is very comfortable, has a great walk mode. It's lighter. Anyway, so that's the main catalyst behind us picking up a little more telemark, again, servicing the community, people coming and asking about it and asking about telemark in general. So we're not at the point to have a full-on rental fleet, but we're trying to, again, be yeah, pick up the slack where other people might have dropped it.
Sure. The big retailers no longer will carry that stuff. It's too small of a niche for them, and it needs a shop like yours or a business like yours. What type of organizations are out there to join, support, to talk about the backcountry, about skinning, about earn your turns?
So when I got into this, I moved back to the Valley, Mount Washington Valley in 2014. And my first season, I didn't know much about the backcountry scene here. I spent a lot of time out alone, which isn't recommended. Like, you should be going out with ski partners. And so the community felt very fragmented. Everyone had their touring partner and kind of had their secrets, and that's fine. Like, I understand that part, and I think people need to understand that not only do you need to like have a good personality match with your touring partners, you also have to have the same sort of risk level and experience and some education there too. So that part is it's pretty serious. I mean, you're going into some terrain that has it's high consequences, and you need to make sure that whoever you're going out with isn't a liability, and it can also save your butt if you get into trouble yourself. So that aspect can be overlooked, but it's also can be intimidating to get into the sport, and you don't have to jump right into the avalanche terrain. So this is when you're asking about groups and stuff and involvement. So when I started White Mountain Ski Company in 2016, at that point it was Ski the Whites, and I was a founding board member of Granite Backcountry Alliance, which is a nonprofit. It's a user group in New England that really highlights increasing skiable terrain in the backcountry in both New Hampshire and Western Maine. And what that means is like we don't have the luxury that Vermont has as far as tree density goes. I know Vermont does some trimming, and they have some user groups there that do a lot of the same thing. And so you should always look up like your local chapters and who's doing stuff in the backcountry. But Granite Backcountry Alliance was a user group, and it was a way to get organized and to get access to some old ski trails. So some of these CCC trails that were created in the 30s and 40s, and revive them or just caretake for them. And on a lot of these days where the avalanche danger might be high and or backcountry conditions might not be great, there's a lower, you can go into some of these gladed areas or maintain ski trails and have this great backcountry experience. And if we know anything about forests in New England, is that they don't want trails to exist. All the blowdowns and stuff we get, and all the how fast trees grow back up and grow out, it requires a lot of work. And so having a user group that can facilitate those work days, can manage just the winter use, and also get new projects approved. Like if it's just one person, some entity isn't necessarily going to be like, you're capable of doing all of this. But if you're a big group, you have a loud voice and generally able to get a lot done. So we push projects all over, like I said, all over the White Mountains and in New Hampshire and Western Maine.
That's awesome.
The resorts seem to be getting into it. I know, there are certain places where it seems to be extremely popular. Is that the best way for someone new to the idea of getting into uphilling? Is that the way to take those first steps?
Absolutely. I mean, if you can isolate or eliminate a lot of these variables in the gear, and it's one thing to have to deal with like new gear, but if you're dealing with new gear in an ungroomed, unmaintained environment, like it's hard to tell what's going on. You want to feel the gear's full potential first, and doing that on a groomer will let you know how this equipment's going to perform. So if I'm on a lightweight ski with a lightweight boot and a tech binding, I need to get my confidence on that gear first. And trying it at the resort too also just gets your muscles used to the new mechanics of uphilling, and then to get some confidence in the gear you're on, or just to know how to dial it back. So that really is where, when we rent gear out, we encourage customers like, hey, go try this at the resort first. You don't have to go up and get into some steep over your head terrain right out of the gate. And some people will do that, and that's okay. It's not recommended, but yeah, the resorts have made it really, really easy to introduce people to the sport in a safe environment. And that's what we did up at Black Mountain in New Hampshire. Was we would just send people out, push them, set them up with gear, show them how to use it, give them the tutorials on the gear, on the transitions, give them some pointers, and then send them right out the door. And they were fully capable to take an uphill route and transition and ski back down.
It's awesome.
Last skier standing. What created, like, how'd you come up with that idea? And
Keith, I think you could be that last skier next year.
No. The problem is I can do it if someone's pulling me up.
Okay.
It's the hiking part, which I do. I do some hiking during the summer, but it's the constant walking that I would definitely struggle with.
Well, I think you guys have the same mentality that I probably have. It's like, who would want to do this? And
yes. What kind of person is doing this, and what are the rules of the event, first of all, and just how deep is this?
All right. So this idea of last skier standing was born in 2019. It was the result of a feedback survey of an event we hosted called Bubba's Backyard Ultra, and it's hosted on my parents' property in Conway, New Hampshire, every fall. And it's the backyard format, which has grown in popularity in the recent years, where you run a loop, usually around 4 miles, and you'll run a loop and you do that loop within an hour, and you can't start the next loop till the next hour. And you start out with, we start out with 100 people, and it doesn't end until there's one person left or everyone decides to quit. And so, that means that people are out there having no clue how long they're going to go. You or I might know, like, we have a tap out point, like we're just going to go until it stops being fun, or we've hit some personal goal. But there's going to be people on the starting line that want to finish the event. So everyone who doesn't finish, so there's only usually one finisher, only can be one finisher. Everyone else is a DNF, a did not finish. And the idea is that after, say, you do 24 hours of this, you'll have completed, say, 100 miles. It's a twisted concept, and it takes 2 people to push this event deep. But anyway, so this event we hosted, it was probably the first year we had it, but it went not terribly long in the scheme of things, but like 25 hours, by far the longest event we've ever hosted. And part of the feedback, one of our participants said, "Hey, what about skiing? Do you think we could do this with skiing?" And I dismissed it quickly because I was trying to wrap my head around being in ski boots for that long. And of course, my brain goes straight to finisher's mentality of like, push it till it's the absolute like worst, until you're just ready to drop dead. But I fed this idea around to a circle of friends, and it just took a couple friends to say, yeah, I'd do that. And then we just put it online, and the rest is sort of history, where we held it initially at Black Mountain, New Hampshire, and now it's at Black Mountain in Maine. We've done 6 editions of it, and it's gone as far as 76 hours. Participants go up about 1,100 feet, ski back down. They get a little break in between, and then they do it all over again. And what I've found is it's really just more of a celebration of alpine touring. And yes, it gets crazy. Yes, there's participants that see 3 sunrises, but for the average participant, they're going to make what they want of it. They might just go, I don't know, 15 laps or less, and that's okay. And I think when you step back and realize like why these events are made, it all circles back to the whole conversation with community and meeting new people. And if you want to get involved in some of these crazy sport, it's like, well, you go to these crazy events. Well,
endurance athletes are becoming more and more the norm. I mean, we have the Leadville 100. We have the 24 Hours of the Glen, right? Mm-hmm. And so it goes on and on. I think taking it to alpine touring, I applaud you, because, it's just another venue, whether you're a runner, whether you're a skier, whether you're a cyclist, it's just another venue. And that's awesome.
Yeah, we applied it to Nordic skiing this year too, which was a little out of our wheelhouse. You know, we do a little bit, we dabble in Nordic. We're by no means like a high-end expert Nordic shop, but again, I love to Nordic backcountry ski, and I love to skate ski. And so having this in a skate ski format, or you know, you could do some classic. There were people that suffered through some 100 miles on classic skis, but
Oh.
it I don't know. It's really like when you zoom out, you're creating this framework, like the scaffolding for people to come in and fill it with whatever they want, and you just sit back and watch it. Like you're just giving them the space to achieve whatever their potential is, and help them out as much as possible. And man, it's been so fun, and I think we've met some incredible people along the way and helped tell their stories.
Well, we are now truly in Tuckerman's season. Truly in Tuckerman's and Mount Washington season. Does your traffic automatically increase as people start to come up to the ravine?
Yes, it's different. You know, I think it just shifts. So we start off our season with this gear frenzy, people wanting to sort out their alpine touring kits first, and then as like winter evolves, you've got a lot of people that want to rent. And then once they've rented, you know, then it switches into like, all right, spring season. Now this is when you get a lot of just backcountry traffic. Resorts start closing or winding down. And so yeah, the backcountry is just another stage of our winter. We have a big end of season sale. There's Granite Backcountry has an end of the year party. So there's just like stuff happening. Our season way exceeds retail season, which is strange. You know, in retail season, it ends kind of when the kids, you know, sadly, families stop coming up here. Most of our customers are from out of state, but families stop coming up because kids switch from skiing to soccer,
Baseball. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, there's other sports happening. And but Tuckerman's is like this draw that always pulls people like clockwork every time, every spring. You know, people just put it on the calendar that they're going to come up on a weekend and enjoy some spring skiing in Tuckerman Ravine. And it's been a routine. I don't know. Yeah, it's just been going on for as long as backcountry skiing has been happening in the U.S. So it's so cool to see, and you know, it was important for me as a kid. My parents brought me up that way when I was, I don't know, at least 9 and 12. I have memories up there, and it's so cool to see. But yeah, we're seeing some spring conditions in March, and then we'll have winter conditions in April, and then you got to add on the auto road opens up, and then people start driving up to the summit and skiing what's left of the snow up there. So that goes on through May.
Sure. Well, we all saw the video of the avalanche with a snowboarder being chased. What are some advices? You know, you said when you go backcountry, you can get into some real consequences if you don't do due diligence. What are some advices you would give people to avoid what we saw on the TV?
Well, yeah, easier said than done. I think the biggest thing is to have some sort of perspective that there's always another day. You know, like I think we get so caught up on the here and now, and that maybe this is our window to get out. We're going to make the most of it no matter what the conditions allow us. But keep in mind that, yeah, this is a lifelong endeavor. We're going to be doing this for many years. I hope that like skiers and snowboarders can keep that in the back of their head, is like, hey, there's always tomorrow. Like if conditions don't look great, then maybe I can just back off. So that's number one. But once you do go up that way, I think what's fun is seeing the user group just being more savvy now about being able to check the forecast, check the avalanche conditions, to get some insight as to what's happening up there. It's so easy to lose touch with the conditions when you're coming from, you know, hundreds of miles away, or even us in Jackson. It's sunny. It could be like cloudy down here, but sunny up there, and vice versa. So even for us, if I haven't been up there in a day or two, it's hard. It's like I don't even know what's going on. So I can only imagine out of towners, it's the same thing. So one is do your research, always know what's happening through the weather. And I always like to check the observatory page and their higher summits forecast kind of for the worst, and see. And as you get down in elevation, it usually gets a little better, a little less winds, a little warmer. And then check the Avalanche Center. So the Mount Washington Avalanche Center always issues a bulletin And they'll do that throughout the season as avalanche risks exist. And once they stop, then it becomes other hazards generally that will still be worth considering. So as these glide cracks, these crevasse looking things start opening up and rocks start forming or showing, and yeah, long sliding falls could be like a big possibility. So that sort of information is really good to have. But yeah, and then bring all the gear that you need to have a safe and successful day. And so I've always seen skiers and snowboarders with like gear over the shoulder in one hand and then like just booting up something, no helmet or whatever. So if you can just reduce the risk a little bit there, I would say you're going to be you're going to have a way better time anyway. It's going to be more efficient. So think about sharps are really important. So crampons, I would start there. Like people think micro spikes work, but there's aluminum crampons specifically for places like Tuckerman Ravine that are going to give you a more successful experience where you might not slip as much. You can get out of the boot pack. So that stuff exists. We rent that stuff out. Ice axes is that's like a nice third point of contact. I often would say, just build a shelf, like get a warm up run in. You don't have to commit all the way to the top. You can just find when the snow starts getting steep, like maybe just make a platform, dig out a spot to put your skis on. Your skis should be on a pack, not in your shoulders. That's another thing. So having a nice ski carry on your backpack will really help. Having those hands free as you climb up. But yeah, those are things that I think are evolving. And the more we go up there, I think I'm seeing it more frequently that we're getting a more savvy user group too. But you're always going to get people that are just, this is how I've always done it. But I can't express enough how much more enjoyable it is when you have some of that safety gear.
Sure. Gotcha. Condition wise, unlike resorts, we can go check out the resort, hey, what are the conditions at Wildcat? You can just one web click and you get
Wildcat's a bad subject with conditions this year. So let's leave
right.
Wildcat out of it.
Let's all right. Let's just stay in the valley, Cranmore, and hey, we got pack powder or frozen granule, whatever. What is the thing to look for when deciding, hey, today's the day to do it, or what, today's not the day to do it?
That's a good thing. All right, so we have a conditions blog on our website, which will kind of point towards what we're seeing, just that baseline of, all right, what are we going to experience up there? Can we ski all the way down to the parking lot? Can we skin up? Are we like going to walk a bit? Is it closed on the Sherburne ski trail to a specific crossover? That information is just good to set the stage of like what to expect. But when I'm looking at a forecast and I want to go up and have a good time, I'm looking for the wind to be pretty calm relatively. So I'm looking at the summit forecast and I'm like, well, if this wind is sustained above 50 miles an hour, it's probably not going to be that fun to be out there. And that obviously fluctuates and changes and depending on the direction, but I ideally don't like to be up there when it's windy. It's just not fun getting blown around. Second is temperature. So I'm looking at the temps to this at the summit to hit 30 degrees, I think that's a good mark. And then down here in Jackson in the 50s. And those two kind of numbers, they can swing a little bit. Sun can be very strong on south facing slopes like Right Gully and the lip and really warm snow up, even though the air temp doesn't get as warm. But as a general rule, those are good numbers to guide you. And then the snowpack matters too. So how much snow is up there and what is the condition of it? So that could mean, did it just snow? Is there going to be some avalanche risk from new snow? I mean, I remember like a Mother's Day storm where we got 30 centimeters or something, or 30 inches or something, a ton of snow. It all blew around, but it's so day to day up there that I'm constantly just trying to figure out what is the snowpack like and is it going to be good skiing? And what happens when we get these spring conditions, the snowpack really can stabilize. So you often have these different layers that can release avalanches. So once it warms up, it just becomes a general solid snowpack where everything's bonded nicely together. So that's what historically people are looking for in spring skiing. They want the corn skiing where it freezes overnight, warms up over day. It does this freeze thaw cycle and gives you like a nice fun surface to ski on, much like, I don't know, some people love it just as much as powder. So this corn skiing that you could get really well in the upper snow fields of Mount Washington, but also even on the head wall in Tuckerman Ravine itself. So those are generally what I look at. Trying to think if there's anything else, but it's a really good starting point. It's just information, just kind of where to look. And you can always give us a call at the shop too. We'll throw in our 2 cents.
Well, with that information, the Avalanche report that comes out daily, how important is that piece of information, and how concerned are you with everything happening in Washington now with the Forest Service, with being able to continually get those reports?
Yeah, that's critical. It's a part of, as a backcountry skier and the community in general, it's something we utilize every day. We get an email that hits the inbox. They post bulletins up there, and that sort of outreach is invaluable. It saves lives. There's people that I'm sure have turned around, myself included, where they're like, yeah, I don't need to end up in the Abbey report today. It's like, it's going to be considerable or high. Like, I'm not even touching that terrain. I'm going to stay in the trees. And if you can't reach that bigger user group, yeah, we're in trouble. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of healthy caution with, like, most 90% of the user group. I think that most skiers will be like, I'm not going up there. I don't have education, or I don't have my, I don't have any Avalanche gear. So, and it's great to have that headspace, but you're always going to get people that go up and just are uneducated. It's not their fault. It's just a matter of, like, we can't reach everyone through our channels. We live in an echo chamber, but there's always going to be people that just don't know any better. They don't have a mentor. They don't have a guide. They just see a photo and they're like, that looks fun. I think I want to go do that. And then they just jump right into it without going through the proper steps to get there. So, yeah, using that, the Avalanche Center as a resource is huge. And it's a huge learning tool too. Like, you can look up incidents and to be like, all right, what happened there? Why did that happen? How can I learn from it? That's something that I want people to share more information and share their mistakes so that we can learn from them. None of us are perfect. No guides are perfect. The forecasters aren't perfect. And we just need to share information and learn from those mistakes.
100%. I don't care whether it's skiing in the winter or hiking. The book, Not Without Peril, a lot of people have disappeared or died in the whites that didn't need to. And, on Lafayette or Mount Washington. But those are real things. Well, we want to thank you, Andrew, for coming on. First off, for what you're doing up there, because I think the biggest thing I took from this little chat is community. Mm-hmm. Community, you can move mountains with community. You can create a business out of community, which is missing so much when we just focus on profits. And we want to thank you for what you're doing up there. Thank you for coming on. It was awesome. And we want to get your message out there.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Excellent. And, who knows, either see you at the shop or coming down the Sherb.
I'll tell you what, Keith has never been up Tuckerman's. I told him before you came on that I'd take him, and I will even set him up with some, you're going to have to get some tech boots.
Yes,
from
I'll need the
from Andrew,
I'll need the gear.
But I'll climb with you any day, because the honest truth, Andrew, I would rather climb for my turns away from people than be on a lift with 7 other people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, if you guys need any help getting set up, swing by. And you can even drive up. Like I said, you could even drive up the auto road and get.
That's cheating. Sorry, that's cheating.
You got to hike back out. So there's there's a little bit of work involved in the slack country, as we call it.
Well, you know what? If he's going with me, he's climbing.
All right.
So, all right. Thanks, Andrew. You have a great spring. Continue doing the great work you're doing.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Keith, you want to go to Tuckerman's?
I just got to get the calves in shape, but yeah, I'm game.
Haven't you been skiing?
I have.
Well, then you should be in shape.
I'm in decent shape. I've done the downhill part. It's the uphill part I worry about.
Well, next time you're at Loon, I expect you to get up early and climb South Peak, even boot it up. You know, anything worth skiing is worth climbing for.
That's a good point.
That's always been my
all the
statement.
good trails are worth climbing up.
Oh yeah. So, but what did you take out of that? I mean, does that excite you now, whether it be on Telemark or tech bindings?
You know, it's what a cool thing he's been able to do. He's essentially taken his passion and turned and monetize it, while also maintaining the idea of being a go-to spot for information, for just
Community.
the community.
Community. I mean, that part of the equation, as I saw the Granite Backcountry Alliance come into fruition and start to grow, okay, they've cut trails. I have not been up there to ski those, but I've wanted to in the worst way. It's when I finally retire for good, I will be doing that. But what they're doing up there is making it accessible, taking what Europeans embrace and bringing it here to the States, and it's huge.
I can say last year I hiked Doublehead over in Jackson.
Yep.
That was interesting to me just to see, one, the trail, and then two, the glades, around that are off the main, the old CCC trail. And you can see, like, all right, I can see this. It was the first time I had really been able to ever kind of see the idea of backcountry skiing and what the draw might be, other than, of course, the bowl.
Right.
But to me, like, as someone who hasn't done it, the bowl just looks like Colbert's.
Well,
Jackson, a big.
I've dropped in at Jackson.
Okay.
Okay. And when there's a lot of snow,
Yep.
it ain't a big drop.
No.
I mean, it's people have pucker factors of how tight it is, but it opens up into a big bowl down below. Tuckerman's is a little bit different because guess what? You don't have ski patrol up there. And it's not at a resort, so it's not being monitored the same way. But Tux is incredible. Hillman's Highway, incredible. There are other spots up on Mount Washington that are really, really good. And I don't want to divulge everything because at least Tuckerman's has traffic.
Yes.
So if there is trouble, people are watching it. But you know what? It's springtime. It's time to embrace this. It's time to go out and have some fun with.
The thing I took from it was the idea of how he got into it. He was bored, almost. I don't want to say bored, but just looking for the next rush. And it makes sense because as much as I love hitting all these resorts, on a regular basis. Yeah, I've center line, left line, right line of each trail. They don't really change.
Well, what Andrew, he's much younger than I am, of course. Okay. What he just said about being bored, I get bored with ski areas. Sorry, folks. I don't care if it's Stowe, Sugarloaf, or whatever. When they're good, they're good. And I love to go up and ski them because I love to ski. But I've skied them so many times, I need something new and exciting. And that's why I go explore. I've climbed Pac Monadnock and skied it on tele skis after a dump. I've climbed Monadnock to go ski it. And part of it's to explore the woods and explore lines that nobody else potentially has ever skied. That is cool to me.
Yeah, and by being in this community, that's by jumping in at the beginner level, you can get taken along for the ride. And, where to start, and hey, this is the kind of the progression.
Yep. Well, let's make it happen.
All right.
Let's you and I get up to Tux.
Right.
We'll go up to see Andrew. And anybody getting up to Tuckerman's this year, get up there, enjoy it.
Have fun.
Be smart. As Andrew said, there's always another day, because if it's not right, it's not right. I've made my mistakes. Don't make those mistakes with me. So, and that's what I would implore. But be more than intelligent than just being the Joey of the day. I guess that's the way to do it.
Yeah, the goal is to get back to the car at the end of the day.
Exactly. We want to thank you for joining us on this episode. We want to thank Andrew Drummond. We'll see you next time.
New England Ski Journal's Basecamp is a Siemens Media podcast. Siemens Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.